and good evening. Welcome to our fourth edition of the Third? Sorry.
Third.
I feel like we've done four now. You're right. This is the third edition. We have had two of our playoff breakdown shows. We just had that on a little while ago, 6 to 7. This is our third edition of the South Florida Blitz. We bring you all the news and headlines and games highlights from around South Florida high school football. I'm Marty Pallman, along with Joshua Wilson, the owner and publisher of FloridaHSFootball.com. As you watch us tonight on Facebook, we're also on Twitter and YouTube. And Josh, another busy week in South Florida. There's always something going on. And, we'll talk about that in just a moment as we have our interview coming up at 7:40. And we will have from the TC Palm.
Bryan Cooney.
Bryan Cooney, that's right. He's coming up at 7:40. We will have our Pick 6 coming up. We'll pick 6 games from the South Florida area later in the show. But for now, we start with...
Yes, indeed.
Breaking news. The Blitz Lines for South Florida.
Yes, indeed. And Marty, taking a look at one thing, there was a couple of big games last week down there. Shabana Madonna edged Coconut Creek real easily. No issues there. Well, not real easily. I would say it's a 7-point game. It's the game that I would say that I referred to that was real easy was American Heritage crushing Cardinal Gibbons. So the two games down there that a lot of people were focused on. They were wondering what was going to happen between Heritage and Gibbons. And then, of course, Shabana Madonna and Coconut Creek. And Coconut Creek comes up just short against Shabana Madonna, but American Heritage rolls Cardinal Gibbons. That was two of your biggest games down there last week. But then here's a third one for you. Miami Northwestern squeaks by Cardinal Newman 7-2. So 3 of the big games down there, and two squeakers and one that did not go somebody's way.
So that wasn't the Marlins and the St. Louis Cardinals 7-2. Sounds like a baseball score to me. You said Northwestern and Cardinal Newman.
Yeah, no, absolutely
not the St. Louis Cardinals. Yeah, that's a weird score. I think we had an 8-2 score or something last week. I know in a game we were talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and everything. And then, of course, we got our interview starting to line up here. We've got him ready to go on deck. But as we go through the Blitz lines here between crossing, including Treasure Coast, and this is what we'll talk to Bryan here in a moment about here in a few minutes here. But this one really, we mentioned in the playoff breakdown show, Marty, is the fact that after Treasure Coast got off to a hot start, they've lost 2 games in a row, and it's not been so much hot fire there for the Titans right this second. Yeah,
that schedule's got really tough, though. I mean, you lost to St. Thomas Aquinas and Cocoa back-to-back. I mean, I guess that's not incredibly surprising. But, yeah, they had been having such a good season, and it's kind of come crashing down a little bit. They're still in pretty good spot for the playoffs, Treasure Coast. But, yeah, that's a tough back-to-back to have for that team, and they lost both those games. So they'll have plenty of time to recover.
Absolutely. And, of course, how about this one I saw from the Palm Beach Post? Mike Norvell was visiting recruits late last week on Friday by helicopter. I mean...
Nice.
Are we taking something out of the Nick Saban playbook? Because, Nick Saban, the dude has done that very often.
Why not if you're Mike Norvell? It works for Nick Saban most of the time, so why not try that? And, it was FSU's bye week, so he had an opportunity to have that time to go down to South Florida and do recruiting. Miami had a bye week as well, so both coaches, Cristobal at Miami and Norvell at Florida State, had a chance to probably go and recruit a lot around the state of Florida last weekend.
No, absolutely. And, of course, we got a couple of questions already popping into the chat here. And let's see, that one, definitely no thank you on that one. But here we go. Bring it up from Michael Parsons. Josh, you got a lot of pots on the stove, but can we get the power rankings point spread this week? Yes, we will have it this week. I promise we will have it. I apologize. Last week was just very crazy personally and dealing with some other stuff. So, but the power rankings definitely looking like they're very strong. We'll get that situated here this week, but we'll definitely have the point. We'll definitely have the rankings and the forecast there situated here probably most likely sometime tomorrow, so or very early Thursday. So I got it, Michael. We're on it.
Yeah, he's on it this week. Well, we have picks we do too. We're gonna try and do those again.
Yeah, we got the pick 6 and everything.
We have those tonight. Yeah, that's right.
And I got to say something here. I got a text message from Larry Bluestein, who we had on last week, over the weekend. But, he kind of caught some flack down there with the people down there in South Florida about, potentially Miami Norland going to, could beat both Miami Central and Booker T, two of the big powerhouses down there. But, Norland has kind of been here and there. I mean, the last time Norland won a state title, 2010.
I didn't know it had been that long. I thought it had been longer.
Yeah, it's been that long now, and
they've kind of shuffled out as the Northwestern, Central, and back to Carroll City for a little while. Then Booker T was there. Yeah, it seems like everybody's had kind of shared that at times.
You know, and I will say this about Carroll City down there is that Carroll City itself, you know, they've gone through some coaches down there. It's been rotating, and they're struggling now. So it's like, you know,
they were the best program there for years. Carroll City was in Miami-Dade County, but yeah, it has changed, and Miami Central has really been good as for like 15, 20 years. They've been a powerhouse down there in Miami-Dade County, and yeah, Norland, maybe it's their turn. We'll see as the season goes on. I know there's a lot still to be played. They still got to play Central, but yeah, we'll see. Miami Norland right now off to a good start. They're now scoring more points than the Dolphins because the Dolphins only scored 20 this past.
No, you're absolutely right.
Scoring 70 the week before.
And you know, another team that's hot down there in South Florida in that stretch is Monarch, and we definitely say this Monarch. We got a couple of the Monarchs. Monarch 9 fans and the coaches sitting there in the house here, and good evening again to Say Less Jesse 954, who was on with us during the playoff rankings breakdown show, and of course Shamir Clark, definitely as well. So there we go, 954. There you go, as well. There you go. The coaches are definitely, and the fans are about Monarch down there, and of course Bobby Bird chimes in about Miami Norland here. When Miami Norland beat Lakeland, South Florida was screaming, we got beat by a middle of the pack team. Is Norland middle of the pack in South Florida this season? I'll be honest with you. That answer is no.
No. Lakeland's good. I mean, they played, I don't think they've lost a game since. Oh, they also won. Yeah, Lakeland's not bad. Lakeland's always going to be a good team. No, I don't think Norland's a middle-of-the-pack team either. But
I think Norland's a top 5 team in this state. I actually think Norland's better than Miami Central right this second in some ways. And I think
they've been playing like it. Right?
They've been playing like it. And even some of the stuff in terms of what we're seeing in the power rankings, the FHA power ranking itself says Miami Norland is ahead of Miami Central right this second.
Exactly. So... But again, that's all going to, I guess, sort itself out when they play each other.
So. And Bobby Bird definitely agrees with us on that one about what we're saying about Norland. And, of course, Michael Parsons says, no way, Norland, solid top to bottom. I think a lot of people agree there on that one. So, Larry, for if you're watching or listening and you caught that flack last week, we apologize. But I think there's people here that are validating your comments on that one. You know, that's, you know, Norland is showing. I mean, they're showing that they are a team to be reckoned with. But, you know, going up further, I-95, you got Palm Beach Central there in Palm Beach County. St. Thomas Aquinas, obviously the usual suspect, but then you get up to a little bit further, get into the Treasure Coast stretch, which we'll talk to Bryan here in a couple minutes here about. That is, you got your usual suspects, Treasure Coast, Vero Beach, but you know, Treasure Coast again. We'll talk to him and you know what's going on. You know what, you know, I mean, obviously outside the tough schedule, you know, why is it that, you know, hey. You go down to St. Thomas Aquinas, only score 6, and then you go up to Cocoa and you can't get the offense going.
Yeah,
and I think that's, you know, thing. And then of course, you know,
keep in mind those are 2 teams that won state titles last year. I mean, they're just they're really good. I mean, those are really good programs. And when they played each other, Cocoa and Aquinas won by 1 point. I mean, it was a battle. And maybe, according to the controversy there, maybe they didn't even win that game. But yeah, those are 2 excellent teams. I don't know. Treasure Coast, yeah, they can still have a good year despite losing those 2 games.
And of course, Jameer Clark said he'd like to see Norland versus St. Thomas Aquinas. I think a lot of people across the state would love to see that one. I don't disagree there on that one. So
this year that might be true.
All right. Well, Marty, it is time to take our water break.
All right, 1 minute water break. We'll come back with our interview and then with a pick 6 as you watch tonight's edition of the South Florida Blitz. You're watching on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. Marty Pallman, Joshua Wilson will return in 60 seconds.
Welcome back here on the South Florida Blitz. Josh Wilson Marty Pallman. Joining us from TC Palm is Bryan Cooney. Bryan, appreciate you joining us here tonight and everything. And we'll be able to talk some Treasure Coast area football and all that. So, Bryan, this kind of, first give us just kind of the rundown. What, first kind of like, what's going on with the usual suspects there and along the Treasure Coast, especially like with Treasure Coast, now losing the last 2 games, and then Vero Beach, they did bounce back this past week after dropping that game at home to Seminole in week 5. I mean, what's going on down there that we can kind of learn more from you?
Hey guys, first off, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been a fun first 6 weeks of the season for our area as a whole, and yeah, it's been the usual suspects that I think a lot of people predicted to be up among the top teams in Central Florida and the state as a whole. With Treasure Coast starting off 4-0 was such a, I don't want to say it was a revelation, but some big wins against teams like Osceola, Jesuit, Seminole that got a lot of attention across the state. And we have teams like Vero Beach. They played some pretty solid teams as well, had some good wins against Miami Northwestern, Palm Beach Gardens, Fort Pierce Westwood, one of our other top teams. So it's been a bit of the usual suspects that have kind of stood out among the rest of the pack. And all our teams have had a little bit of adversity to kind of fight through with some early losses as well. So it's kind of a matter of our top teams are in pretty good shape at the moment, but it's now, can these teams get ready for the next steps to finish out regular seasons and go into the postseason looking like teams that can go on some long runs, which I think we have teams capable of doing so.
Oh, absolutely, and long runs indeed, and that. But Bryan, a couple of teams that people are not talking about, but maybe should be talking about. You mentioned one of them, Westwood, who is showing some great improvements over there with Coach Coquel there, and then of course Jensen Beach doing their thing again. Let me ask you this about Fort Pierce Westwood. What has really, what's the biggest thing that really has improved from year 1 to year 2 under Chris Coquel?
Yeah, I think they had a lot of talent on that roster last year, and I think cohesiveness has been the big thing with that group in particular, with that coaching staff. I think from year to year, the talent is, I think this maturity has helped in a lot of ways as well. I think guys kind of settling into their roles. And with the Panthers, they have a lot of guys that play both sides of the ball. So I think their overall team depth has really improved. So their key guys don't have to be out there on the field 70, 80 plays a night. And I think as a compliment to that, I think they've had games where they've had more guys contribute, not relying on guys to make plays on offense or defense. It's been a collective effort, I feel like, for Fort Pierce Westwood. They're a fun, interesting team to watch. I think high upside for that group as a whole.
Yeah, sometimes when we're talking about teams like Treasure Coast and Vero Beach, these teams they're really good teams, but with Treasure Coast having to play St. Thomas Aquinas and Cocoa, do you sometimes feel like teams in that area kind of get lost with the South Florida teams being right down there as well? We don't know as much about them because of Miami-Dade and Broward and those areas like Palm Beach County.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think in my few years here, our top teams have gone and played some very high-level opponents in different parts of the states as well. So I think when you have a team, let's say Treasure Coast, for example, I would say 2 years ago they had a monster win beating American Heritage Plantation over in Naples to start the season. And that was kind of like an eye-opener of, okay, these guys, they've kind of been on the rise, and they had a big win like that to kind of put them on the map. And I think now the schedule they played last year is the exact same schedule they've played this year, just with the sites switching. So a team like St. Thomas Aquinas, like a Cocoa, they do not underestimate teams like the Treasure Coast. And I think you can say the same for Vero Beach, a program with a lot of history going back decades, and they're a known commodity. And I feel like it seems like those two teams in particular at the moment are they have the attention of our area. I believe the state as a whole. I think in the postseason, I think each team has kind of been looking for that real breakthrough at the state level, and I think those two teams are capable of doing it this year. This may be the year that there is that moment of a huge win in a regional championship or a state semifinal. I think the time it's been ticking for a while, but I think it's upon us right now if these teams can kind of seize the moment.
And seize the moment indeed. And of course, I want to say it's coming up here in the next. And what is I don't want to say. Let me. Is it week 10? I want to say when I know Treasure and Costa and Vero have got to. They're going to be. They've got to meet and butt heads to each other. So I know that's going to be coming up, and that's going to settle a lot of things right there. A lot of the questions that people have remaining for both of those teams.
Yeah, it's going to be a special meeting this year because it's going to be on Saturday, October 28th. So it's going to be kind of a standalone, kind of marquee matchup that it's been the top game in our area for a long time from a competitive standpoint. And to have it on Saturday night, Treasure Coast will be hosting that game this year at South County Stadium. It's going to be a lot of fun. These matchups the last handful of years have been traditionally very tight games and come down to whoever has the ball last, whoever can make a key stop or a big play on offense. So, yeah, that's going to decide probably whoever may come out of Region 3 will have home field. That game could decide who is the top seed in the region.
No, absolutely, and that's a big thing right there. And did anything today surprise you when the power rankings came out? I mean, did anything really kind of stood out in terms of what we saw from in the second of the power rankings?
Yeah, I would say at the moment we have 5 teams that would be in the postseason if things wrapped up today. So all of our teams they kind of stayed around that same little bubble as far as Treasure Coast only dropped 4 overall spots in the rankings. Vero Beach had a nice little bump up. I think they were 43rd in the rankings from 75th. And Jensen Beach, Fort Pierce, Westwood, and Martin County are all around that 100, 120 range. So I think the interesting thing that stood out, Treasure Coast's strength of schedule really jumped up. I think it's now the 7th overall schedule from the ratings standpoint goes, and teams like Jensen Beach and Fort Pierce Westwood, their strength of schedules are in the negative. So I think that kind of limits their ceilings for how far they can climb up Region 3, 3S for those teams in particular. And it's very possible those two teams, especially in Class 3S and Region 3, could play each other in the first round. It's a very realistic possibility, which they would not play in the regular season, so that would be a pretty fun contrast of styles. Jensen Beach, extremely talented defense, and Dennis Palmer, I think, is one of the most underrated running backs in the state as a senior. And the town of Fort Pierce Westwood that would be an awesome first round or maybe second round playoff matchup if we can get that one.
No, absolutely, and everything and all that. And with that said, Marty, you got any final questions for Bryan?
No, I appreciate you coming on with us here tonight. It was good talking about football on the Treasure Coast. And what games do you have coming up this week that you're going to be covering?
That's a great question. I know Fort Pierce Westwood especially has kind of a standout game. They host Moorhaven Thursday night. Moorhaven's always a steady team, kind of in the middle of the state. Should give Fort Pierce Westwood a good challenge for the long run for the Panthers, I feel like. Yeah, it's kind of a quieter week, I would say. I think the following week we have some district matchups. Jensen Beach especially, they can clinch their district, I believe, next week against South Fork, which can kind of set them on kind of the right path for their season the rest of the way. So I think it's a quieter week overall for the area as far as district games, kind of key games. But we have some big ones on the horizon that are going to shake out a lot of kind of question marks of what teams are really legit. I think that's kind of an overlying question we have with the local level and then for the state level. Can these teams compete with the likes of, say, Osceola for Treasure Coast, Vero, and Martin County in their region. And then for Jensen Westwood, you have Malin and O'Gallagher, because they're definitely the top class of 3-3S at the moment. So there's a lot of excitement around the area right now, and I think the fun's only going to continue the rest of the way.
No, absolutely. And Bryan, I appreciate being able you stopping on and everything, and we'll see you out there on the football fields and everything else.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Bryan Cooney from the TC Palm joining us here on the Blitz here. And Marty, getting ready to thing, but let's talk about some rankings here. We actually have some rankings we can talk about here going into this week. And
the pick six we'll have in a moment, but now it's time for the
some
rankings.
Rankings. So the Florida, we're going to look at the Florida top 25 as I have been working on it today. But Florida top 25, Chaminade still sitting there, that number one spot. Columbus sitting there at number 3, Miami Norland. I'm jumping them over Miami Central up to number 4. I think Miami, as we discussed, Miami Norland is just such a better team, I think, well-rounded. I think there's some things that Miami Central, we're kind of still trying to figure out what's going on, but pretty soon it will be settled on the field between those two because they have to play each other in district play here. But American Heritage sitting there at 6, and American Heritage, I like what they did here. They really flexed the muscle against Cardinal Gibbons, and they're being rewarded in terms of that and everything. But then of course we got looking at St. Thomas Aquinas sitting there at 8. A lot of South Florida flavor in this top 25. I can tell you that,
as usual.
It's usual, the usual suspects and all that that are in that South Florida flavor. But then Miami Palmetto sitting there at 14 now. And then we're going down a little bit further, Booker T. Washington up there at the 20. And then, of course, that's pretty much where we're at right now in terms of the South Florida teams. It just really is interesting to see what we've got here. But there's some other teams from around the Sunshine State here that are going to be spread out across the board, but, and all that. But we did have some comments coming through that we're going to address. But, it said, Michael Parsons was asking, that Heritage, about American Heritage, as, that he showed the, senior squad, and I think they do have actually a lot more senior talent this year as well. And I appreciate the comment, Michael, about Josh and Marty bringing it, spread the word. Thank you. And then, Of course, Jameer Clark, first time that he here. It's his first time watching. I like the vibe. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
See the music. Yeah.
But no, it's not just the music. It's the content and all that, but everything and all that. So, but. Yeah.
Well, the rankings are kind of shaping up like you would think. The teams that usually are up there are up there. The powerhouse teams, and we mentioned Miami Northwestern kind of struggling, but you got Miami Norland moving in this year, and that music means it's time for the pick 6.
Yes, indeed, and we got 6 amazing games, I think, on the list here this week. I mean, it's a little harder when you're getting in terms of the backstretch of the schedule until we get to the playoffs, but needless to say, we do have games here situated here for South Florida. And Marty, our first game up on the list tonight in the pick 6 is American Heritage at Western, our first pick 6 game. And, I like what the Patriots have done. Western, some people say, oh, they're a top 25 team. Some people, I don't know. I'm kind of like, indifferent there. And I think, honestly, I'm going to go with the Patriots here to win on the road at Western.
Yeah, I know the New England Patriots can't win much these days, but the American Heritage Patriots probably can. I mean, I agree. I think it has to be a tough test for them, but they'll get it done. American Heritage wins this game on the road. And they don't have to make a quarterback change like the New England Patriots do either.
No, not at all. And of course, that I don't think they would have to do that. All right. Here we go. This will start to settle some debates down in Miami. Booker T. Washington versus Miami Norland. How about that?
I'm going to go with Norland. I mean, this will be a game at Travis Powell, I know, between these two. And Booker T. Washington, they're good again. As you say, they moved up to number 20 in your rankings this week. But I like Norland. Norland. We've talked so much about Norland. I got to pick them now because we've already talked about how good they are.
Yeah, I until someone figures out how to beat Norland, I'm going to go with Norland. But, I mean, when it comes time for Norland and Miami Central, that's going to be the tough one. And I may need to flip a coin on that one.
Right, exactly. So another Miami-Dade County game, Edison and Palmetto.
Yes, that is a big one right there, Miami at Edison. They were off last week, but Miami Palmetto, they only have one loss on the season. Their one loss is to Columbus. So
there's nothing wrong with that. They're the number one team there in that class.
And you know what? I look at this here, and honestly, Marty, if in my view on this game, this is a tough one. Where's my piggy bank at?
Piggy bank.
I need to get that piggy
Flip
bank.
a coin?
I need to flip a coin on this one. Let
All
me see if I
right.
can get a quarter out
This
here.
is live action here with a piggy bank.
Yes, I have. Let me see if I can get a quarter out here because I really need to fill. You think? By the way, it is a football piggy bank. By the way, in the camera, there
it
you
has
go.
to be.
Yes. All right. Is it Edison or is it Palmetto? This is tough.
Heads Edison, tails Palmetto. Is that what we're doing?
I don't know.
You're gonna figure it out.
You know what? I'll be honest. I really got to go with Palmetto in this one. I think it's just they're just a slight by edge here. That's what I'm going with.
Is this game? Where do they play? Is that a Palmetto?
This one, I believe, is going to be at Tropical. Actually,
Tropical Park, right? Okay, so really not a home field advantage either way. Because
No.
I know about Trask Powell. I just haven't been to Tropical. Okay.
Yeah, this one's at Tropical.
I'll take Palmetto as well. They've been playing really good football. I'll take Miami Palmetto.
I mean, if this was at Traz, I think I'd go Edison's way on this one.
Oh, okay. So Edison, right?
They play around at a couple different places,
Yeah.
but I think this being at Tropical, I would go with that.
Okay.
All right, Pahokee at Atlantic. Pahokee at Delray Beach Atlantic. Pahokee sitting near fourth in the DFSA Power Rankings, by the way, in Region 4 and 1R. Atlantic really pretty good. They're sitting there in the top of their region in Class 3M. So you know what? If this was at Pahokee, if this was over there at Anquan Bolden Stadium in Pahokee, I'd take Pahokee. But this is Atlantic. I like Atlantic what they're doing. I gotta go with the Eagles there on this one.
4 for 4. I'm gonna take Atlantic. By the way, how old am I when you tell me Pahokee plays in Anquan Bolden Stadium? It's like, I remember watching him play at Pahokee. So how old am I getting at this point? All right, that's another good one as well. We'll move on to our next game, which is good one.
Homestead versus Columbus.
Yeah, that's a good one in Miami-Dade County. Homestead and Columbus.
You know, this is Homestead. You know, they played in the 3M state championship game last year. I don't know if they're going to make it back there again this year, but nonetheless, the Broncos challenged themselves. They got good team chemistry. You know, they got everything that's needed. But Columbus is just Columbus, and Columbus is undefeated, top 5 in the state. I got to stay with the Explorers here this week.
Yeah, I think Columbus is maybe heading towards another state championship game appearance there in 4M, and I agree with you again. We're going to take the Christopher Columbus High School Explorers to win that game.
Absolutely. And, of course, we're going to get some small school football here in the Battle of True North at St. Brendan. St. Brendan, a late turnover got them the win against Miami Springs. Miami Springs packing out of the Region 4 and 2M in the playoff rankings this week because of that. But True North still undefeated. True North, they have a signature victory already on the season against Naples First Baptist. And for True North, you know, a good win here is only going to make the game against Bradford they host next week even more interesting. So, you know what? I'm going with the True North Titans. They look really good. They look even better than they were last year. I got to take True North in this one.
Yeah, True North there in Class 1M. They're at the top of Region 4. Is that a St. Brendan?
They're a charter. They're a classical academy. I believe they're charter.
True North.
Yes.
I mean, we're just St. Brendan. I'm trying to
St. Brendan, Miami. They're both in Miami.
No, I know. It's
St. Brendan's a Catholic high school.
What class?
2M.
They're 2M. Well, either way. Yeah, I found out about True North last week. I'm gonna, you know what? I'll go 6 for 6. I'll say True North's gonna win that as well.
No, absolutely.
So we completely agree this week, which is weird.
Yeah, we're 6 for 6 here on the picks for the South Florida Blitz here, and Michael Parsons, he definitely says Miami, Norland, the defensive line, and of course, your quarterback, you poured there as well, and then he is also saying, how about this? He thinks Edison goes with the upset over Miami Palmetto, the Palmetto Dreadful. But then again, can I remind everybody that defense wins championships?
Yeah, most of the time.
Most of the time, okay.
Unless you score 70 points, then you can probably win championships. But
Michael Parsons says also the Atlantic Eagles over the Pahokee Blue Devils. Big D right there. That's what he's thinking. And the Explorers at home against the Broncos got to show something. You know, he's taking Columbus. So, you know, that thing, there you go.
Yes, and also goes with Edison, as you said, with the upset Palmetto Dreadful Norland as well. Boy, Michael, very busy on our social media as always. So good to hear from him. And well, that's going to do it, Josh. We've already done 30 minutes. Man, it goes by fast when we do these kind of shows, and We appreciate everyone watching the third edition of the South Florida Blitz. Coming up in about 15 minutes will be the Central Florida Blitz at 8:15. But we'll be back next Tuesday, 7:30 to 8, for another look at South Florida high school football on the South Florida Blitz. For Joshua Wilson of FloridaHSFootball.com, I'm Marty Pallman. So long and good evening. Enjoy Week 7 high school football in South Florida. So long for now.